Welcome to National Pension Partners, where retirement planning meets peace of mind. Today, we're diving into the 412(e)(3 plan, also known as a fully insured pension plan. This isn't just any retirement plan. It's the gold standard for stability and guaranteed benefits. How does it work? Simple. It's funded exclusively by life insurance and annuity contracts. This means no market risks, no actuarial assumptions, just ironclad guarantees. Think of it like this. You're a small business owner who hates surprises. The 412(e)(3 plan gives you predictable, stable contributions every year. Your future benefits are backed by insurance contracts, so you know exactly what you're getting. No guesswork, no headaches. But there's more. These plans are designed to maximize your contributions and offer significant tax advantages. And with National Pension Partners, you're not just getting a plan. You're getting a team of experts, attorneys, CPAs, actuaries, all dedicated to making your retirement as secure as possible. We provide personalized consulting, ensuring that your plan is tailored to your specific needs. Best part, initial consultations and proposals are absolutely free. $0, zero commitment. So if you want a retirement plan that's as reliable as your morning coffee, head over to nationalpensions.com. With the 412(e)(3 plan, your future is in safe hands. Retirement planning never sounded so thrilling. Perfect for small business owners who like their finances as predictable as Monday mornings. Stable contributions, ironclad guarantees, and serious tax advantages. It's the trifecta of financial security. And with National Pension Partners, you get a team of brainiacs, attorneys, CPAs, actuaries, ensuring your retirement is as secure as Fort Knox. Oh, did we mention the free consultations? That's right. You get a personalized expert proposal with $0 down. So, if you want a retirement plan that's as reliable as your morning coffee, head over to nationalpensions.com. Because when it comes to your future, boring is the new exciting. Retirement planning never sounded so thrilling. For more details, check out National Pension Partners at nationalpensions.com. Retirement planning never sounded so thrilling.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the media show at the Pod TV Network. My name is Nick Palavita, and I'll be your moderator for today's show relating to the media. And we're going to discuss some of the hot topics that go on today in the media around the United States and, of course, around the world. First of all, I'll bring in a former writer for Jimmy Kimmel Live from Los Angeles, California, a member of the Mega Society, which no one knows what that is. They'll have to Google it. And that's Rick Rosner. And then also we're going to bring in today a person who has over 100 years experience in journalism and actually is a journalist major from Marquette University, none other than Mark Lee, who will be leading the discussion for the most part. And then, of course, we have our progressive. You got to have your dominant progressive, the alpha male progressive, the person who just doesn't give up the screen, projected progressive. And that's none other than Jatovy McDuffie, the progressive. You know, the left is right and the right has left us. So with that, we also have Sasha Starr, but he looks like he's in the background right now. And we'll start off with Mark, because you're a journalism major. What are the hot topics in the media? What are we looking at today?
Well, the hot topics in the media right now is the coverage of the DNC, and everybody was saying, and you even observed as well, that it looked like a party. And there was even some people that were comparing the DNC to the RNC. I heard somebody that said it was like a funeral versus a very bad a funeral versus a very exciting party, because they were saying that the DNC looked like they were having a party and they were just enjoying themselves, where it was a very sad occasion with the RNC. And that's what one of the people put out there as their notion of how they were handled and everything. So a lot of people were looking, as you like to say, about the kind of the cosmetics and less about the substance and everything. But there were definitely a lot of folks that were excited. I think the ratings were up, but Rick can let us know how the ratings went and all along those lines. But it does look like a lot of people were enjoying everything from the music, because there was plenty of music, to the balloon drop, to a number of other things.
So
Okay.
Kamala's acceptance speech beat the ratings for Trump's by 22%, but she only spoke for 37 minutes. Trump went on for 93 minutes. Hers was one of the shortest acceptance speeches in recent history. And yeah, it was punchier. People say that if Trump had quit speaking after 37 minutes, it might have been a good speech, but then he spoke for another hour.
Well, isn't that one of the complaints about Trump lately? Is a lot of people are saying that he is steadily rambling, steadily putting his foot in his mouth, and a number of other things along those lines. So that's something we're hearing a lot of people in the media saying, is that he gets up there, maybe starts off with some ideas of an agenda and all along those lines, and then he starts just putting his foot in his mouth and saying something that he didn't intend to say.
His own campaign is acknowledging that, because just this morning they've been fighting with ABC, where they're supposed to debate on September 10th. They want to either withdraw or change the rules. One of the rules they want to get rid of is hot mic, that they want to shut off his mic when he's not directly answering a question, because they're afraid that he might say, I guess, stupid stuff because it's hard to keep him under control for 90 minutes.
That's true and everything. Hey, Nick, you'd asked me what else was going on in the media, and since we've got Shaquille,
can I just say something about the ratings? So the propaganda wing of the Democrats, sorry, misspoke. The media, they've been shown by the Pew Research Center, I believe it is, to have had like 80% of their comments be positive about Kamala Harris as opposed to Donald Trump. They have been responsible for spreading this rumor that Beyonce was going to be there. And then she didn't show up, and Kamala Harris had a 22% bump in the ratings compared to Trump. I mean, the amount of manipulation that goes on, nobody can take this seriously. The whole thing is just a huge, big game, and the powers to be just pulling the wool over the eyes of the gullible Americans. That's what's really going on.
Well, I think that you missed it. That we don't have a
1% night one, 39% night two, 11% night three.
Yeah, we don't have a democracy anymore, Shaquille. Okay, remember Kamala Harris didn't get one vote from.
No, hold on. Nick, you're wrong.
But she should be celebrated because she's the first African American of Indian heritage or whatever claim that she's got, right, to be in this position, and she's won it on her own merits. No, she didn't. Everyone knows she didn't.
Just to point out, the Trump and the RNC would love the ratings that they got at the DNC. Trump thrives off of ratings. He brags about ratings. He brags about crowd size. He brags about all the people that he knows. He name drops all the time. So we have to get out of this. This is not fair and balanced, as Nick wants to say. It is true they got better ratings. It wasn't some media manipulation and all this stuff.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Obama comes out and says, he's obsessed with crowd sizes. So he's not allowed to talk about how much bigger his crowd sizes are, but you guys never talk about the ratings.
People, let me finish my point.
Well, we could be here all night for that.
And tune in because it literally felt like a party. And the biggest troll, which somebody actually pointed out, which I thought was actually hilarious, is that the amount of music that they put into the DNC, all the songs that they had to get clearance for. None of the songs got pushed back or told that they couldn't play them there. The RNC had to get a cover choir to play there. They got Hulk Hogan, Joe Rogan, and Kid Rock and bragged about getting them. So they would love to have this.
No,
Again,
they got celebrities that are on the right.
let's
I
give
don't
them-
believe it.
Shaq,
I don't
let me
believe.
finish.
How
Shaq,
could they
let me finish.
possibly
Let
have
me
got
finish. Let me
celebrities
finish.
at the RNC that are on
Shaq,
the
let me
right?
finish.
Can't
Point,
believe it.
continue to take over. Jack, let me finish.
Well, how much longer are you going to go?
So again.
20 minutes.
So again.
Yeah, now he says so again. He's not going to repeat everything until he said.
I'm on the screen. Let me talk. So again, the RNC Trump brag about ratings. And then when they go against them, oh, well, everybody manipulated. It's this lie. Come on, just give them their flowers. They had a better show. That's it. Just say they had a better show.
Well, speaking of a better show, just really quickly, Jacoby, Shaquille actually kind of alluded to it, because I know a lot of people, even at the DNC, were all excited about this notion. I mean, I was even waiting for her to pop up and everything, because they did get Pink and they did get some others, but they were waiting for either Beyonce or Taylor Swift to show up. So I've not heard yet what happened or why they didn't show up, but have you heard anything as to what was going on and were they supposed to show up or did they not show up? What was going on there? I mean, they did play the song, Freedom or something like that, doing that, but there was a lot of speculations. Every time I turned around, one of the correspondents was asking one of the delegates, "Have you heard the rumor? Have you heard the rumor? Have you heard the rumor?" So
I think Taylor Swift shouldn't ever go to something like that. And why would you? I don't understand that the mentality of these celebrities. You know, roughly half the population of the country is going to vote one way, and half the population is going to vote the other. Okay, I'm rounding the numbers, but it's roughly 50. Why do you want to upset half the population, half your potential audience? What possible money can you get from doing that? It doesn't make any sense. So I don't think that they should be doing it. And what's his name? Dave Kroll, who complained that "Here Comes My Hero" was played at the RNC or the Trump rally for RFK. Actually, I think it was when RFK came out in support of Donald Trump. And he was saying, "Oh, we never authorized it." You don't need to authorize it, dude. You don't own the music. You sold that music already. So it's the production companies and the distributors, etc. They're the ones that have the ability to give permission or not give permission, or give licensing or not give licensing. And the Trump campaign got the licensing and got the approval to play the song. So there's a lot of fluff coming out from celebrities, and I don't understand how they can sit there and do that and then act surprised that half the country is frustrated with them, that half the country doesn't relate to them, that half the country tunes out. Okay, same thing with the mega athletes that are earning hundreds of millions of dollars a year, right? And then they say, "Oh, we're standing up for the little guy." Bullshit. You are not. Come on now.
But Shaquille, that's not always the case. Isaac Hayes and his family definitely did not give Trump permission, and there are a number of other ones that said and have been proven that they did not give permission for certain songs to be used. So there were ones that it's not
up to them. If it was up to them, then sue them. If it's up to them, then sue them. If you don't own the material anymore because you've sold it, you don't have any further rights to it. It's not how it works.
They are being sued.
If you sing a song, right? If you sing a song and I own the production company and I buy that song, okay, then I have every right to do what I want to do with it. Now, give you an example of this. Michael Jackson was known for doing this. When there were celebrities and singers who would say stuff against him, he would often go and buy their entire catalog from them, okay, from their distributors, just to kind of have a bit of a dig at him. Fair enough. He's allowed to do that. So he's also allowed to license that music to be played in things that you, the original singer, the original creator of that music, may not have wanted.
Well, it's not always
none of this matters if it doesn't change anybody's mind. We don't know if the better ratings for the DNC is going to lead to a bump in Kamala Harris's polling. Right now, she leads by 3.5%. That's not enough. Those are Hillary Clinton numbers. She's got 10 weeks to get like an 8% lead in the polls. That's what Biden had, an 8 to 10% lead in the polls in October, November of 2020. He won by 4.5%, which was barely enough. She's got to do the same thing.
So I looked at the international betting markets, and I looked at them all of last week. I looked at them every day last week. I wasn't on the shows, as you know. I was tied up with other things. But I looked at them, and I actually looked at them multiple times a day because, you know, I'm a gambler, so I look at them all the time. And it was very interesting because Kamala Harris would take the lead, And then Donald Trump would take the lead, and then Kamala Harris would take the lead, and it just went back and forth like that. I haven't looked at them today. Actually, I might look at them now and come back to you. But that's been very interesting, and I think you're correct, Rick, that what I think the gambling markets are factoring in is the idea that the polls will underestimate Republican or Donald Trump support. However, there is an issue here with the data analytics, because what they're doing is they're taking the average of the overestimation in 2016 and in 2020. They're taking the average and then they're adding it back into the numbers that are there right now. But for that to hold true would imply that there's been no improvement in the way that pollsters are conducting the polls. Now, I'm not an expert pollster, so I don't know, but that could be a little bit dangerous. That could actually create a false sense of where Donald Trump is and where Kamala Harris is. But the last thing I'll just say is, if we can just remember a few months ago when we were talking about this, and I said to you, it's actually in Donald Trump's interest, I believe, for him to act like he is behind the polls, because that is more likely to give him a surge than the other way around. When Kamala Harris had said that a little while ago, she made some sort of comment about being the underdog. I don't think that actually worked as well for her and her base as what it does for Donald Trump and his base when he says it. So even if the polls are incorrect, that may actually be helping Donald Trump, not hurting him, in my opinion.
Just to point out, and I don't think, and this is why I stress this a lot. When we and we're gonna start from, I'm gonna try and move to the polls at the end. So I'm gonna start with the celebrity aspect. Nobody said, I don't know why Hulk Hogan or Joe Rogan goes to the RNC because half of the country likes X. Nobody said that. Everybody cheered, okay, Joe Rogan's there, Hulk Hogan's there, Kid Rock's there. Nobody gave the alternative of, man, half the other country likes, so I don't know why he's doing that. And that's the thing that we got to get out of. It's the fact that celebrities really don't have as much pull as we think. However, celebrities going to different RNCs or whatever, they have the right to do that, and they can choose whatever they want to. It doesn't matter. Michael Jordan was the big thing in the black community. Michael Jordan said that he would sell to anybody, and didn't want to focus on the black community because white people make money too. Well, the black community got mad at him for saying that, but it's true. White people spend money too. But again, we never said that the same things we're saying about the celebrities at the DNC, we never said that about the RNC. It is true that Trump wanted all these big crowds. That's why he rants and raves about them. That's why he tries to say that Kamala Harris has weak crowds and all this other stuff. Crowd size is his big thing. So getting on down to the polls, if you look at 538, which I have up currently, 538, Harris has been trending to the lead since they stopped flip-flopping back in July 29th. Harris took the lead, and it's been trending that way ever since. There was actually a poll that came out just recently. Matter of fact, today, the Angus, it says the Angus Reid Global. That one, I mean, these are all national polls, and really we need to focus more on the battleground states because that's going to be where it's important. But the national poll that they pulled has Harris up by 5 points. So it's trending that she's winning. And yes, every candidate saying that they're in the needs to stop saying that they're in the lead, because yes, it does give you a false sense of security, which it's true. The Democrat Party, because there's such a euphoria there and people are so excited. Yes, people are starting to get that as Steve talked about, people asking for jobs in the administration because they believe that they're going to win. And hey, yes, that gives a false sense of security. But this is why Kamala Harris has pushed the underdog mentality. This is why, yes, Trump should too push the underdog mentality, because it's about getting out the vote. That's all it's about. And truthfully, the Democrat Party in totality is bigger than the Republican Party. The Republican Party has 33%, and it's been shrinking ever since because a lot of people have left the Republican Party due to Trump. But a lot of people will come back home. So it's going to come down to those battleground states, and it's going to be tight. It really is.
So Trump is polling at exactly to like 0.5%. He's polling the same numbers that he polled 4 years ago. So her winning or losing depends on what people thought of her administration, if she can get out the vote. My online bookie won't even take bets anymore on who's going to win, which generally means they don't have a line. They can't figure out what's going to happen. Also, Shaq, you said that, that the polls, have they improved any? I think the polls get crappier every election cycle because I've said this a million times. People who are not crazy. Regular people are increasingly reluctant to answer the phone for pollsters. They tell them to F off, they don't pick up, and so that leaves it to crazy people, and crazy people will say anything, and you can't get good results off of them.
Well, polls aren't just done by phone. I'll just say very quickly, look, I often understand that betting on elections for Americans is not allowed. We're allowed to do it, but apparently you're not. But can I just say, I don't know who your online bookie is, but they suck, right? If your online bookie is not capable of publishing odds on the biggest political event, in the world every 4 years, when the international betting markets have got odds, most bookies, and I know about this space very, very well for obvious reasons. Most bookies, what they will do is they'll publish odds on their core specialty, right, or their core specialties, and then what they'll do is they'll farm the rest out to other bigger bookies, right? So if an Australian bookie was to take a big bet on, Vancouver versus Toronto in the NHL, they're not going to be able to hold that money in their book, because what's the point? They've got nothing to lay it off against. So what they're going to do is they're going to go to one of the big European bookies in order to get that money placed. So if your bookie's not doing it, your bookie sucks.
Yeah, that might be the case, because they may have figured out that I'm in America where I'm not supposed to bet on it, so they're just not going to show me the odds. I don't know.
but doesn't the polls don't make a difference? Because I agree with Jatovia. It's really the battleground states. Kamala Harris could win by 20 points and lose the election if she loses the battleground states. In other words, California goes all in for Kamala. Oh, she's from California. She wins 100%. She gets 33 million votes, but doesn't make a difference because her electoral votes do not increase.
But even there, it's not going to
Arizona, Ohio, Pennsylvania, the 3 states, Georgia. That's what's going to determine the election.
Well, even there on those polls that are conducted in the swing states, there is some manipulation going on, because some polling companies, some pollsters, I should say, want to skew their polls a certain way, because it means they're going to get more funding, they're going to, get more revenue for things, etc. So there's a lot of manipulation that goes on in that space. Look, I think Pennsylvania in this election is going to be probably the most important state. I think without Pennsylvania, Harris does not really have a pathway. He does, but I don't think it's realistic for her to be able to. Yeah, I don't think it's realistic for her to win the election without Pennsylvania.
Why didn't she pick Shapiro? See, everybody.
Well, exactly. Well, I consider that. I consider that to be a mistake. But I will say for Trump, it's being taken for granted, I think, by Republicans that they're going to win North Carolina. Now, I know you guys live, or two of you guys live there. The polls would indicate that North Carolina is going to vote Republican. It's not a given, but it would indicate that.
Yeah.
Certainly, Georgia, it looks like it's going to come back. One of the things that's very interesting that's not being talked about is the makeup of the Senate. So, and the House, actually. So that, great big red wave that was supposed to happen 2 years ago in the midterms didn't actually eventuate. What is going to happen this time round? And there was some argument back then that this time round would be easy for Republicans to make gains. That's also going to be interesting, because a president who doesn't have any kind of majority in the other houses, that's a difficult presidency very often. So I think that'll be interesting. But Nick's absolutely correct. Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan are going to be important. Nevada looks like it's in play and might actually flip over. I think Nevada will. I know a lot of people in Nevada. I know a lot of people in Las Vegas, so I do think that will probably flip. Arizona, I'm not too sure about. It's possible. I don't think so. Colorado, I don't think so. Virginia, I think that Virginia would have flipped under Biden. I'm not so convinced of that under Harris. New Jersey, I think, is no longer in play, and New York certainly isn't.
At this point, with 10 weeks to go, I like the single national number because I'm not ready to go that crazy yet. In 2020, I basically had a murder wall. You know, when the detective goes crazy and starts putting stuff up on the wall and connecting them with thread and stuff. That I'll do that in the last month, where I start looking at individual states and writing little numbers down on pieces of paper but I'm not ready to go that crazy yet.
But you know something, Rick. Can I tell you? Look, Sasha Starr, I consider Sasha to be a very good friend of mine. You know, I love his company. I've had the opportunity to meet with him in person. You know, love Sasha. And look, there is no doubt that Sasha and I have some different political opinions on certain things. But when Sasha and I are discussing trading, we have some of the most wonderful conversations. Sasha sometimes teaches me stuff. Sasha told me something about 6 weeks ago, and it's just been on my mind ever since. And I've been looking at the thing that he told me about, and I'm like, I'm going to have to do something here because, you know, this is a great trade strategy. You know, I focus my life. I'm very disappointed with the way politics is going in Australia. When it comes to America, it's not my country, so I can just give commentary. It's not going to affect me too greatly what happens in the US. If I think it's bad for the economy of the US, I'll just trade for the economy to decrease. If I think it's good for the economy, I'll just trade for the economy to go up. It really doesn't make any day-to-day difference to my life. And if I can just tell you one thing from my heart, it's not to get too caught up in this stuff, because it doesn't matter. You know, in our lifetimes, if we live to an average age of 80, there's going to be 20 elections roughly in our lifetime. Who cares? Things swing, things go back and forth. I think focus on yourself, focus on creating wealth for yourself, focus on making yourself happy. For me, I got very frustrated with all the regulations and laws and things that I couldn't do. So I went offshore. I went to other places. I set up structures in countries where there were no regulations, only to come back and say, look, I love the lightly regulated areas, but actually sometimes the regulations are really helpful because it means that the people I'm dealing with are regulated. They do something wrong, I can sue them, and I can go after them professionally and that sort of stuff. So focus on improving your own life. I think people get so caught up in politics. I know it's a big deal. I know it affects your lifestyles, and I know that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, you can't really do much about it. And I think that to sit there and fight the system or get too emotionally overwhelmed by it, it just hurts you. It doesn't achieve anything.
I've got a question for you and Sasha. There's a show on, I think, HBO called Industry, which is about big investing banks and all the skullduggery. And there, of course, there's a lot of sex. But this season, they're talking about socially responsible investing. That's like a green company is getting an IPO, and can you do socially responsible investing, or is it bullshit?
It's bullshit. Sorry, Zach, I'll let you answer first and then I'll come in.
I'm not a big fan of socially responsible investing because the main word in all that is investing. Socially or antisocial, it's really, in my opinion, it doesn't have anything to do with the main word, investing. Investing means find, if you're investing in stocks, viable companies that grow their earnings. And if you take a company, for example, as Altria, which is a cigarette maker, they show fantastic profits. They pay awesome dividend, about 9, even slightly more than 9%. Although as the stock is going higher and higher, so the percentage will become lower. However, if there will be cuts in interest rates, then their dividend will become even more attractive. So it pays you more to invest into Altria than to buy CDs or buy treasury bills or anything like that, and especially if there will be interest rate cuts of say even 25, but more likely 50%, 15 points. So to me, the socially responsible investing, although I know some people quite impressed with that and taught it, It didn't caught my heart. Sorry.
So Rick, yeah, of course it's bullshit, in my opinion. Let's give you a little bit of background on me. So I started my financial career actually in commodities trading, futures contracts. And the reason why was because the boss of the stockbroking firm that I was working with, or that I first started working for, on the very first day, I started walking into where the stock dealers were, and he goes, no, you're not going anywhere near there. You're going over here. And I said, why? He said, you're a fucking cowboy, and I'm not going to let a lunatic like you anywhere near the share market, right? If you're going to be a lunatic, go do it in the futures market. Best thing he ever did, honestly, best thing he could have done for me, because the share market was really tame. And I used to think that the thing that I specialize in now, which is options and interest rate trading, but options especially, I used to think that was for pussies. Right, there's no way I was ever going to trade options. Right, go and take the risk, take future spreads, take naked positions. That was where I was at. The reason I say that is this: if I look at a particular commodity product, right? Let's take frozen concentrated orange juice. There's no futures over that anymore. Let's say that I wanted to trade those. Okay, I'm not too bothered about how it's being produced or anything like that. All I'm doing is I'm trading the price movements. So when I'm going to go and look at a company, it really doesn't factor into, and it shouldn't factor into my investment decision as to what that company is about unless I'm an activist. So what I mean by that is, if a company says to me in their financial report that they're trying to target a certain demographic breakdown of their workforce, right? They want a certain percentage of women and a certain percentage of trans, all that, I don't care. I don't care if you meet that criteria, you don't meet that criteria, it makes no difference. I want to know your revenue expectations, your profit expectations, your assets. So that's what I'm looking at. Okay. And if I was going to go and invest in a Japanese company, funny thing about Japan is they disproportionately employ Japanese. There's not much diversity going on. Right. So you're looking at the financial aspects. So if you see a solar company that's building a solar farm and you decide that you want to put $1,000 behind it because you want to support the company, yeah, fine. Or 10,000, I don't know how much you can afford, fine, no problems. But that's just essentially a donation. Whether the investment may come off, it may not. And this is one of the things that I find so appalling, because you have a look at some of the biggest passive managers in the world, right? Groups like BlackRock. The Californian public employees' pension fund money is in large part invested with them. They then go and invest in companies, and then they dictate ESG rules to these companies and say, if you don't comply with this stuff, we're going to pull your funding. But what ends up happening is companies like Target, who may never have bothered to do what they did with Pride last year, end up going ahead and doing that stuff in order to make this ESG quota. And what happened? They lost billions and billions of dollars. It doesn't help shareholder value. And I have a real problem with that. I think if you individually as a person want to invest in something because you believe in the cause, go for it. But to have that decision taken away from you is a terrible idea. And I'll just point out that BlackRock actually lost, the first one to do it, lost $1 trillion in investments on the ESG woke stuff that they were trying to do, and it doesn't make any sense. And just lastly, I'll just say the other bit of corruption here in this part of the market is what the private equity guys do, because they will come in after all this stuff has gone on. They will then come in and do a takeover bid for these companies. They'll split the assets apart. Caesar Entertainment, or whatever they're called, the Caesar Casino Group, is a perfect example of this happening, although it wasn't for the woke stuff. The private equity guys came in, they split out all of the real estate and put that into a real estate investment trust. And they put it into a company called Avicii, I think it's called, okay, or Vidi or something, right? And that company has a $35 billion market cap. Now, Caesars has a market cap of $8 billion. And to be perfectly honest with you, and I quite like Caesars, but to be perfectly honest with you, I'm not sure how they're going to maintain anything, because what the private equity guys have done is they've loaded them up with debt that they're paying 12 and 13% interest on. I can't see how they're going to be possibly able to make a profit. I just can't see it. And they don't own anything other than the operations. So
But Shaquille,
What
along those
manipulation that occurs in the financial markets, and what they're doing is they're hiding behind things that they think politically sounds good. Oh, we're going to employ more black people. We're going to employ more women. We're going to employ more people from the LGBTQ community. They're doing that because they think it makes it sound good. And in the background, while you're not watching, they're making off with all the assets and all the money.
Yeah. But Shaquille, along those same lines and everything, there are some people, and like I said, you are much more in that space as is Sasha and everything. But I do understand that there are people that are investors that specifically invest, and you kind of alluded to it because they have a cause that they want to support, and they are investing in the, something that they feel is supportive of that cause. And there's a term for that. I forgot the term, but it's basically
activist investors, and that's fine. You can be an activist investor, but do it with your own money, right? Or do it with people's money who have given you permission to do it, okay? Right. But I don't think it's fair and reasonable for big companies to lobby governments to get the governments to invest pension money with them, and then for them to go out and invest in ways that is not actually about returning the highest possible return to the investor within ethical and legal guidelines. That's just not on. As a manager, as a financial manager, you have both a fiduciary responsibility to your clients and an ethical one to make sure that the returns that you're giving them are as high as possible. And I can tell you now that in all my experience, bar very, very few, none of them do it. The ones that do, you won't have access to. The ones that do are the hedge funds that oftentimes the managers have invested large percentages of their own money into. Okay, those guys don't care. As Sasha alluded to before, the normally the safest stocks that you can kind of get into, the most sort of stable and high yielding and growth stocks that you can get into are the sin stocks. Gambling. I think there's a big strip club. It's like the biggest strip club in the world. I think is in Vegas. I think that's a listed company. The big porn manufacturers, alcohol manufacturers, cigarettes. Those sorts of companies, they do really well, especially in a depressed market.
But on the flip side of that, and I don't know your answer because I'm just thinking of this question and everything, what are your thoughts around what some people would call anti-investment? Because I do know that there was a time that a lot of people were upset at, I think it was Snapple, because they felt that Snapple had some ties to some racist organizations or racist people and everything. So there was a whole push to kind of divest people from Snapple, just like there was a push to divest people from certain liquor companies because they were targeting the African American community and everything. So are those kind of disinvestments, for lack of a better term, and protest investments, is that something that you think is a good tactic or a bad tactic? Because I remember that Snapple thing existed for a long time.
Well, again, I'll say this. It depends on what's happening. If you don't want to put your money behind something, that's fine. Don't do it. No problems. Okay? If you don't want to buy Bud Light, don't buy Bud Light. If you don't want to buy a cigarette company or an oil company, then don't do it. But the problem that we have, I don't want to repeat what I said before, is that if I don't want to invest in companies that are becoming too woke, for lack of a better description, right, I don't have the right to do that if my money has been invested in superannuation funds or managed funds or whatever without my permission, and I've got no ability to move my money away, then I don't have any ability to say I don't want my money invested in that. So when you complain about the opposite, which is, hey, we don't want to invest in certain companies. Like I don't want to invest in Halliburton, for example, right? I don't like what Halliburton did 20 years ago. I have a real issue with them making bombs that look like first aid kits and then dropping them off in areas where, there were civilians who were injured, who would just go to try to get bandages and try to help themselves. And there were videos that were released by Julian Assange where, they had these videos where a father would call his family over and they'd open up these kits. And in English, it was written that it was a bomb, but of course they can't read English. They deliberately made these things look like first aid kits and medical supply kits. And then somebody would come over, call their kids, call their family, open the package and blow themselves up. That's absolutely disgusting and appalling. And I don't want to support that. So I don't want to invest in companies like that. However, I inadvertently have to because I buy indexes and because I buy exchange traded funds. So I have to have some exposure to them. But I have never actually deliberately gone out and taken a position. Surely I should have the right to be able to, if I'm a Californian government worker, to be able to say, actually, I don't want my superannuation or my pension money invested in those companies. But we don't. So what you've got is you've got a situation where Americans are more invested in the markets than they ever have been before, but they don't have any direct control or even indirect control over how those investments are managed and where those investments are put.
Shaquille, I have a question to you. What do you think about the situation now developing around Telegram? I don't know if you use it. I do use Telegram. And what's happened with the rest of Durov, who invented the Telegram in France a couple of days ago?
So I'm not sure why he got arrested. I haven't looked at that. I know he was arrested. I just don't know what the reasons are for it. My knee-jerk reaction is that's a problem because I know that he's been very unpopular because of the encryption and all that sort of stuff that goes on in Telegram. But at the end of the day, again, without knowing exactly what he's arrested for, what his charges are, at the end of the day, I think people have a right to privacy. I think that people have a right to communicate privately if they so choose. So,
one opinion is that Durov, with his Telegram, they've challenged the intelligence community around the world, at least in developed countries, because people who are using Telegram for messages, for some form of communications, that's fine, but there are a lot of criminals who are using Telegram and cannot be detected, and including terrorists and including all these people. And unlike other sources like it's WhatsApp or YouTube or something like this, when they can follow and detect these criminals. On Telegram, it is impossible. So Durov is now pursued, first of all, by France because he has a French citizenship, to allow the intelligence services to disencrypt its messages so they can follow up the criminals and terrorists and so on. And that's the reason why he was arrested. And France.
I have a serious problem with that, Sasha. I have a really serious problem with that because, look, obviously I'm concerned, as everybody else is, about our security. But I think that when you give up freedom for security, you end up with neither, as Milton Friedman said along those lines. It's like the Patriot Act. Now, again, the Patriot Act doesn't affect me or you because we're not American. But I've never liked the Patriot Act passed by George W. Bush after September 11. And if it was going to be passed, it should have been very, very temporary. Where do we draw the limit? Should we allow the government to have access to all of our communications, maybe in person when you sit there in your house talking to somebody? I mean, there has to be a limit to what the government can do, especially when what they're trying to do is they're trying to monitor communications without a warrant, without a probable cause. Are they going to monitor everything as Edward Snowden would suggest the American government does? Is that what they're going to do? I think it's appalling. I think we should have a right to privacy, and that right comes with a cost that there could be some security risk to us.
And you are ready to accept that there could be serious breaches of security, there could be communications of terrorists and criminals that will eventually could lead to killing of people, for example, in any country. And especially it's well known that terrorists of all kinds all around the globe are using only one source for their communications. It's a Telegram, nothing else.
Sasha, there are many other messaging services. There is many other ways to be able to decrypt messages and photographs and all sorts of other things that they can do. Okay?
Yeah, but what other services they can detect these criminals?
Not easily. Look, 25 years ago, I had a girl who was in year 7. I was in year 9, I think. And she was able to send me a message. But what she would do is she would send me a zip file and it would have 100,000 photographs in it. And then she'd give me the key and then I would unlock this thing. And the program would take like one pixel from here and one pixel, and it would create this other thing. There are so many different ways for messages to be passed. What I'm saying is you either need to have a law that says that you do not have any right to privacy, and so therefore you cannot have encrypted communications, or you have to be prepared to accept that people do have the ability to use them, and they should be able to use them. We should know what the government is able to actually check, and to just say, well, we have to do this to keep you safe, especially coming from France. The UK, for the most part, has been able to manage their terrorist issues, okay? France has done an abysmal job of that. They've done an abysmal job of that for the last 20 years. And now they want to go after Telegram. Maybe they should work out their own internal security measures first and get their act.
So Durov is not just a French citizen, the guy who runs Telegram. He's also a Russian citizen. So
Sorry about that.
Yes.
So I want to go back to it. To this general stock discussion. It looks to me like climate change will eventually be solved by capitalism rather than government. As bad as capitalism can sometimes be, it'll be people taking advantage of financial opportunities. Climate change makes things suck. Somebody figures out a solution, figures out how to make hundreds of billions of dollars off the solution. We're already seeing a partial fix for climate change because we watch so much entertainment. We're not having as much sex, which means fewer people, which means less pollution.
Yeah, well, that's a terrible situation. But we already know how to create energy, right, in a way that is using our current technology in a way which is as least harmful to the environment as possible. What's best is going to change depending on where you are, okay? Climate change itself, the climate's going to change. There are some things that we can do, there are some things that we can't. But the climate change pundits have made a mess of this. If it really is true that the world's going to end in 15 years or in 20 years or in 40 years, because the temperature increases, we should not be buying and investing in electric vehicles. We shouldn't be doing anything. What we should do is to stop all production of motor vehicles. We should stop all production of everything and just continue to use what we've got. Because the cost to climate in creating a new vehicle versus driving the most gas-guzzling vehicle that you can buy from the 50s, the cost of the climate creating the new one is more than what it would be if you just used the same one as what you already had. That doesn't make any sense. So they need to be sensible about what they're talking about. And it's not just about carbon emissions. It's also about the excessive use of nitrogen, which is affecting our waterways, the amount of plastics that are in the ocean. There's all sorts of things that we need to tackle. We can't have a proper conversation because of the politicization of this issue.
Is it the politicization, or is it that we ignore what Rick just stated, that there's no money in it? Because
there's money in it.
There is no money in climate stuff. For example,
I'm in this.
Let me finish, and then you can take over. As you just pointed out, it is better to drive that gas guzzler till it dies and then get a new vehicle. But that's not how we work, because there are car sales everywhere, and we're trying to buy new cars every couple of years because this car has new technology and so on and so forth. And this sales pitch and this is just one example. There are multiple. But in terms of this item or this thing, is that new thing that we have to have. So our consumption and then also the sales around it, if there were money in it, that is truthfully, I think, where Rick was going. And I think it's very, very true. And correct me if I'm wrong, Rick, that it is very, very true that if there were money, it's the same thing. Like with I don't want to bring that in, but yes, if there were money in climate stuff, there would be a bigger push. Now that there's a little bit of money coming in solar, yes, more people are getting into solar. More people are jumping into EVs because there's cash there, but now people are jumping out of it because as you stated earlier, it's cheaper to buy this car than it is to buy that car. So I'm going to buy that car. It's just we are our own worst enemy in that.
There's plenty of money in it. Like, first of all, if I wanted to raise $10 billion, I could probably raise it tomorrow. If I just flew to Europe, went to the Climate Change Forum, went to a couple other groups like that, and said, "Here's the plan," I'd raise that money like that. It just wouldn't be an issue, okay? But some of the issues, like you just talked about, there's money in solar. Actually, no, there's not. There was money in solar. There isn't now. That's why you're seeing a massive decrease in the amount of companies
So you prove
that
the point.
exist in this space. So if you look 10 years ago and 15 years ago, you had every Tom, Dick and Harry wanted to be in the solar game, both from the perspective of selling solar panels to manufacturing solar panels. BP Solar, it used to exist. Mitsubishi had a go at it. LG had a go at it. SunPower, which is using some of NASA's technology, still exists. Tesla is in that space. But Panasonic used to make panels. Everybody was making panels. Now you're actually seeing that there's a massive consolidation and there isn't that many manufacturers anymore. Now, solar panels can work quite well, but the reason it was so popular before was because of the massive amount of government subsidies. Let's take California. California is a place where solar panels will work really well for the majority of people because of their great weather, same as Florida and parts of Texas. That'll work really well. You could massively reduce the load on the power grid in let's talk about California for a minute, by putting solar panels on, geothermal in like house geothermal plants in, and then looking at what you're going to do for your main production. Now, you're going to need some fossil fuels, but you would look at other things. Now, what do people now talk about? Well, people on the right talk about nuclear. But why? California is a perfect place to put geothermal power stations, massive geothermal industrial, commercial grade geothermal stations in. And you don't need to just have 1 or 2 stations to power up the whole state. Make the grid smaller and have them in different places. And there would be plenty of money to do that. The problem is that what you really want, and this is an unfortunate situation that we're seeing around the Western world, is not private capital driving this. What private capital does now is they go to government, ask for a subsidy or a grant or something, and they get billions of dollars. And that's how they're making their money. They're making their money off sucking the government teat as opposed to actually driving innovation. And that's the problem, not just in this space, but in every other space that I'm aware of.
So essentially, you're saying
that's the
exactly what
problem.
I'm saying is that, well, you started off saying that there aren't that many, there are people jumping out of solar because there wasn't money in solar. As I just stated, if there were money in that area, people would be in that area. But because there's no money in that area, people are leaving that area. That's essentially what you just stated. There are better places to like hide.
You're missing my point, Jacoby. You're missing my point. There is plenty of money. You said that the proposition that you put, and I'm going to paraphrase it for you. The proposition that you've put essentially is that if let's say you and I, Jacoby, came up with this brilliant plan, okay, and we could solve 95% of America's electricity usage by using this particular type of technology, the chance we would make $1 gazillion from doing that. The chances of you and I being allowed to do it is infinitesimally small. It would never happen because the big, powerful groups are going to lobby government to make sure that we can't do it. That's where the problem is when it comes to climate change issues.
This is where you're missing my point. And I get your point. I completely understand your point. And we're saying the same thing. If we came up with this idea, it would be tough. It would be tough for us to make it. I get that because there would be groups lobbying against us. Why would they lobby against us? Because they're making money over here. And because they want to keep their money over here, they're going to stop us from making money. That's big business. That's what happens all the time. It's squished. You have the mom and pop store that gets squished out because you have these big box stores that come in and squish out the mom and pop stores. That's just the nature of the beast. That's capitalism at its core. So what we're talking about is the same thing. Yet what we're talking about
that's not capitalism.
Listen to what I'm saying first. What we're saying is the same thing. But as you stated, because when I pointed out solar, and then you came in behind and said, well, people are actually getting out of solar because there's not that much money there. You're proving my point. If there were money in solar, people would be in solar. I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm not saying anything. I'm saying that we agree. And when we agree, why can't we move forward on that?
But because, Jacoby, it's why there's no money there. The reason why there's no money there is because
that's not
the number of
discussion. The discussion is
you asked me a question and I'm answering it. The question is not just about whether there's money in a particular space. It's also about if there isn't, why isn't there? And the answer, as far as I'm concerned, is this. If the money has come from government subsidies, it has a distortionary effect on the markets. Now, sometimes it makes sense to do that. Sometimes it doesn't. The reason why there isn't enough money in solar is because of production costs, because of installation costs. And so you've got to convince a person that the savings that they're going to make on their electricity bill is going to offset the cost of the solar panels, which in most use cases it will. However, the very big point of difference here, we also have to look at how much are we actually saving. And in a number of cases, when you actually have a look at the environmental costs, the costs of fossil fuels we use to create the solar panel versus the amount of environmental saving that you're going to get over that panel's lifetime, when they rate it in a laboratory, yes, you're going to save something.
So
But
now
by the time you factor in shipping and installation, everything else, there is no environmental saving there. So when the subsidies were given to the solar industry and it flourished, did it actually help? I would say that on a local basis for reducing smog and things like that, yes, it did. But when we're talking about worldwide climate change, no, it didn't. And the climate change industry and the activists cover this up all the time. And the big media covers this up all the time because they ignore the fact that oftentimes what they're trying to do is great, but the way they go about doing it actually exacerbates the very problem that they say they're trying to solve.
So earlier you said we shouldn't buy new cars if we wanted to fix climate change. And market forces are already pushing us in that direction. I just looked this whole thing up. In the 60s and 70s, my family got a new car every 6 years. Cars only lasted 100,000 miles. Then because American cars were crap. The Japanese were like, well, let's make cars that are less crap. And they took over the US market for a decade. And now, as of 2012, cars last twice as long. You can get it's not unusual to get 200,000 miles out of a car. A recent study shows that the average US car is 16 and a half years old, has 160,000 miles on it. Now they're trying to make e-cars, electrical cars that last 300,000, 500,000 miles, which means
but people don't do that, Rick, right? Most people that can afford to buy a new car will put it on a lease or put it on some sort of scheme. Most of the big manufacturers, from Mercedes to BMW to General Motors, like all the big guys, have these guaranteed buyback prices and all that sort of stuff, right? Because they want you to buy a new car all the time. And most people will buy a car if they can afford to buy a brand new car. They'll buy a car, they'll hang on to it for 2, 3, 4 years, okay? And then they'll trade it and get a new one. Now, governments do this as well. When was the last time you saw a government agency driving around a 15-year-old car? They don't do it. So what we're seeing is that people want to be able to have the newest stuff, the great stuff, all the new technology. So people want to have that. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Of course people want to have that. Innovative changes is fantastic. But if we're talking about climate change, I think we just have to be sensible about it. And as I said, without repeating it, this issue has been hijacked by activists who really don't care or don't have the knowledge for it. It's like the Just Stop Oil protesters. What are they achieving? Absolutely nothing.
I think it's not that it's the activists in totality. A lot of these companies, again, getting back to the bottom dollar is what we're talking about here. Because if you talk about buying the car, governments, they update their cars all the time. Businesses update their cars all the time. People update their cars all the time. And this is just one industry. They do that in computers. They do that in tech. They do it all. And with these subsidies that you were talking about, yes, a lot of companies are going to make money off of that. But again, if their money was there, if the money was there, people would be there. Money's not there. Why? That's a separate discussion. That separate discussion comes into the technological advancements that we have to get into, and that's going to cost a lot of money that we have to focus on. Are we going to be able to put forth, because right now there's I think it was a company in Japan just created an engine that's destroying hydrogen for a new form of energy release. And I don't think it's similar to the water creation engine that they had years back that Honda was supposed to be using, but then that dropped out. But there's that new engine.
I could invest
money in financing.
Here are the maths on it, right? I could invest $5 billion and build a geothermal station in California, and we would make roughly a 10 to 15% return. That is something I could sell to the pension funds all day long. There is no way in hell. There's more chance of me becoming the next president of the United States than there is of me being able to get permission to build that geothermal station.
I totally agree, and we're out of time. So we want to thank everybody in the United States and, of course, around the world who are watching the media show on the Pod TV network. Next come up timeshares, Solutions or Surrender, which will be on next on the Pod TV network, where people basically get screwed because they bought these timeshares. You want to think about a bad investment? Stay tuned.
Or your parents bought the timeshare and you inherited it.
Oh, you're still going to pay your yearly fees, Rick.
You got to pay your fees.
They're a freaking albatross around your freaking neck.
Yeah, so we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.